Okay, so we're diving into the Caine Mutiny.
Hmm.
This film from, what, 1954? It's like, it's still making waves.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're going to figure out why. We've
Right.
got all these notes here from the Retro Rewind podcast,
Uh-huh.
and they're calling this movie seriously impactful,
Oh, yeah.
even decades later.
Uh-huh.
So let's dive in and see what makes this thing tick and why. Why it might still be hitting home for us today.
Well, it's interesting, how the Caine Mutiny kind of landed right in that sweet spot of 1954 when the world was still, I think, processing World War II.
Yeah, yeah.
War stories, they were big at the box office, right?
Right.
But this film, it kind of took things a step further.
Well, that's what Retro Rewind was saying. It wasn't just like the battles and explosions.
Right.
It brought in this whole psychological element,
Absolutely.
which they said was pretty groundbreaking for that time.
Oh, absolutely. And, I think that's what gives it that staying power.
Yeah.
It's not just like a straight war film. It's a study of authority under pressure,
Right, right.
and how the human mind reacts when things get really intense.
Yeah.
Think about it, like the actual mutiny at the heart of this whole story, it was inspired by real events.
Wow.
And I think that kind of blur between like fiction and reality adds
Yeah.
another layer to the whole thing, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. Definitely. Knowing that there's that real life basis to it,
Yeah,
it makes it hit harder for sure.
it does.
But, Retro Rewind really zeroed in on this character, Captain Queeg,
Right.
who's played by Humphrey Bogart.
Of course.
And they were saying his performance, makes the film legendary.
Bogart's Queeg, it's masterful, really. I mean, he's not just a straightforward villain or a hero. He's
Yeah.
this leader who's slowly unraveling under all this pressure.
Yeah.
And Bogart, I mean, he conveys that descent with incredible nuance. You see, like, the paranoia building, the obsession with these tiny little details.
Right.
And it makes you question, like, is he truly losing it?
Mm-hmm.
Or are his actions, like, justified given the circumstances?
Right.
The film, it doesn't give you easy answers.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people are still debating it today.
That's a good point. It kind of reminds me of how we analyze leaders today,
Mhm.
especially, in high-stress jobs.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the Caine Mutiny anticipated all these conversations
Yeah,
that we have now about mental health,
absolutely.
the burden of command,
Right.
and how thin that line can be between stability and breakdown.
You hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why this film, despite being, over 70 years old at this point,
Right.
still feels so relevant.
Yeah.
It taps into these, timeless questions about, who we trust, how we respond to authority, how pressure can kind of expose the cracks in even the strongest personalities,
It's true. And it's not just about the big picture stuff either.
Yeah.
Retro Rewind mentioned those courtroom scenes during the court-martial.
Right.
Oh, they were saying those are some of the most intense moments in the whole film.
Oh, yeah.
That's where the moral dilemmas really come to a head, they were saying.
The court-martial, I mean, it is the climax of the film,
Yeah.
and it forces you to ask, is it ever right to disobey orders? Even if you believe, your leader is unfit.
Yeah.
It's a question that, I mean, there's no easy answer to that.
Right.
And the film doesn't try to give you one.
Mm-hmm.
It leaves you kind of wrestling with those implications, which is
Uh-huh.
what great storytelling is all about, right?
It is. That's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's a product of its time,
Right.
reflecting those post-war anxieties,
Uh-huh.
the fascination with military stories,
Right.
but it also transcends that time period,
Absolutely.
It grapples with these human dilemmas
Yeah.
that they're as relevant today as they were back then.
And that kind of leads us to another interesting point
Sorry.
that Retro Rewind touched on a bit.
Yeah.
The film's impact, on the thriller genre.
Oh, okay.
Think about how many films and shows today rely on that psychological suspense,
Right, right.
unreliable narrator,
Uh-huh.
all those twists that keep you guessing.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
the Caine Mutiny, it was a pioneer in that regard.
It's like they laid the groundwork for a whole style of storytelling,
Yeah,
and we're still seeing its influence,
absolutely.
So we've got a film that's historically significant, psychologically complex,
Yeah,
and it kind of kicked off these trends in filmmaking that are still going strong today.
it did.
That's a lot to unpack,
It is.
but I think we're starting to get a sense of why this movie keeps drawing people in.
Yeah. We are, but we've only just scratched the surface.
Right?
I mean, there's a lot more to explore in terms of the film's techniques, the
Right.
performance, and how it all connects to those leadership dynamics
Mm-hmm.
that we see playing out in the real world, you know? I
Right.
mean, it's fascinating stuff.
It is. It's like, as we dig into this,
Mm.
one thing Retro Rewind kept coming back to
Yeah.
was that courtroom drama aspect of the Caine Mutiny.
Right.
They even went as far as to call it
Mm-hmm.
like the original courtroom drama.
That's a bold statement. I'll grant you that.
Yeah.
But when you look at how the film builds that tension,
Right.
the dialogue in those courtroom scenes,
Yeah.
the way everything leads to that climactic court-martial,
Yeah.
it's not hard to see how it influenced so many legal thrillers that followed.
It's like they crack the code for courtroom drama, right?
Yeah.
Like the way they present the legal process, the witnesses being questioned,
Mm-hmm.
the arguments clashing back and forth.
Right.
It's all there, and it's done with such precision.
And it's not just the mechanics of the courtroom. It's the themes they're tackling.
Sort of.
Whether it's, a mutiny on a ship
Right.
or a battle in court,
Mm-hmm.
the Caine Mutiny, it zeroes in on those core human questions.
Yeah.
What is loyalty?
Mm.
What happens when authority is questioned?
Right.
How do we handle intense pressure?
And I think that's what makes it so timeless, right?
Yeah.
We might not be serving on Navy ships,
Right.
but we all face situations where we
Right.
have to navigate authority,
Right.
make tough choices, and deal with the consequences.
Think about it this way.
Yeah.
You're watching this film from 1954.
Right.
And yet
Yeah.
it still feels so relevant
Yeah.
to the conversations we're having today. I mean, that's a testament to the power of storytelling that taps into those universal experiences,
It's like the film is holding up a mirror
Yeah.
to human nature,
Right.
showing us the good, the bad,
Yeah.
and the courtroom setting with its focus on justice and truth.
Right.
It just amplifies those themes.
It's fascinating
Yeah.
how the courtroom
Mhm.
becomes this microcosm of the larger world,
Right.
The power dynamics, the
Yeah.
search for truth,
Uh-huh.
the struggle to maintain order.
Right.
It all plays out
Yeah.
in that confined space.
It makes you think about how we as viewers
Yeah.
are also part of that process,
Exactly.
We're judging the characters,
Yes.
we're weighing the evidence,
Yeah.
we're forming our own opinions.
It's an interactive experience.
Yeah.
Even though we're just watching a film.
Right.
I mean, that's the power
Yeah.
of great storytelling.
Right.
It draws you in, it makes you question your own assumptions,
Yeah.
and leaves you thinking
Yeah.
long after the credits roll.
Right.
And that's something I think the Caine Mutiny does exceptionally well.
It's not just entertainment. It's a catalyst
Yeah.
for deeper thinking,
Absolutely.
self-reflection.
Yeah.
So far, we've talked about the historical context,
Mm-hmm.
the psychological depth,
Right.
the legal drama,
Yeah.
and that enduring relevance of the Caine Mutiny.
It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot.
But it feels like
Yeah.
we're building a clearer picture of
Yeah.
why this film continues to captivate people.
Definitely.
But remember,
yeah.
this is just one lens through which we can view this film.
Right.
There's always more to uncover,
Yeah.
more to discuss, more layers to peel back.
Exactly. And this is where you come in, dear listener.
Uh-huh.
What's resonating with you so far? What's bubbling up in your mind as
Yeah.
we explore these ideas?
Because I think the most rewarding part
Yeah.
of a deep dive like this
Mm-hmm.
is that personal connection
Right.
you forge with the material. It's about taking these insights and observations, letting them spark your own curiosity and seeing where it leads you.
So as we move into the final part
Yeah.
of our deep dive,
Right.
hold on to those questions and thoughts.
Uh-huh.
Let them be your guide as we delve even further
Right.
into the heart of the Caine Mutiny and its impact on cinema and beyond.
As we've been kind of dissecting the Caine Mutiny, it's become pretty clear that this film, it's not just about a mutant at sea,
Right.
It's a deep dive
Yeah.
into the nature of leadership itself.
Mm.
And what's so fascinating about it, I think, is
Yeah.
that it presents us with a leader, like Captain Queeg,
Right.
he's far from perfect.
Oh, yeah. He's not your typical heroic captain.
Yeah.
Retro Rewind really emphasized how Queeg's character, it throws a wrench into that whole idea
Yeah.
of blind obedience.
Absolutely.
He makes you question, who's really in charge?
Yeah.
And whether following orders is always the right thing to do.
I think the brilliance of the film
Yeah.
lies in how it blurs the lines
Hmm.
between Queeg's competence
Uh-huh.
and his instability.
Yeah.
It leaves the audience like grappling with those gray areas of leadership
Yeah.
and the tough choices that come with it.
It makes you wonder, how is the crew
Yeah.
supposed to react when their leader
That's
is
very
exhibiting such erratic behavior?
Exactly.
Do they stay loyal and follow orders,
Yeah.
even if they seem completely irrational?
Mm-hmm.
Or do they take matters into their own hands,
Right.
even if it means going against the chain of command?
And that right there, I mean,
Yeah.
that is the moral heart of the film.
Mm-hmm.
There are no easy answers,
Right.
no clear-cut right or wrong.
Right.
The Caine Mutiny challenges us to consider, I think, the weight of responsibility, both for those giving orders and those following them.
It's like the film is holding up this mirror to, like, the very systems of authority and obedience that we often just take for granted.
Absolutely.
It forces us to ask those uncomfortable questions
Yeah.
about how power is wielded
Right.
and how we respond to it.
And those questions, I mean, they're more relevant than ever, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, think about the world today,
Right.
where leadership plays such a critical role
Absolutely.
in shaping our lives,
Yeah.
from politics to our workplaces,
Yeah.
even in our personal relationships. The Caine Mutiny gives us this framework
Right.
for thinking about what good leadership looks like
Yeah.
and the consequences when it goes wrong.
It really does.
The film doesn't shy away from
Yeah.
showing the impact of Queeg's unraveling
Right.
on the crew, the ship, the mission itself.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder, I think, that leadership isn't just about barking orders.
Right.
It's about inspiring trust, fostering competence,
Yep.
and navigating challenges with resilience.
It's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
For sure. But it's also an invitation, I think, to be more discerning in how we evaluate leadership, both in others
Right.
and in ourselves.
That brings us back to the mutiny itself.
Yeah.
It's a turning point in the film,
Uh-huh.
a moment where the crew
Yeah.
is forced to confront this question
Right.
of when disobedience becomes a moral imperative.
It's a powerful moment
Yeah.
that encapsulates, I think, the core themes of the Caine Mutiny,
Right.
the tension between duty and conscience, the
Right.
struggle to maintain order
Yeah.
in the face of chaos, and the resilience of the human spirit when it's pushed to its limits.
And the film doesn't wrap everything up neatly with a bow,
Right.
It leaves us with more questions than answers,
It does.
prompting us to continue the conversation about leadership, obedience, and what it means to be human.
That's the mark
Yeah.
of a truly great film, isn't it?
It is.
It stays with you, provokes you, challenges you to examine your own beliefs.
As we conclude this deep dive into the Caine Mutiny, I'm left with a question for you,
Okay.
our listener.
Yeah.
How do you think the digital age, with its instant communication, constant scrutiny,
Yeah.
has changed the dynamics of leadership and obedience that the film explores?
That's a good one.
It's something to ponder
Yeah.
as we navigate the complexities of the world today.
Remember, the Caine Mutiny, it's more than just a film.
Right.
It's a reflection of the timeless struggles of humanity, you know?
Yeah.
It's inviting us to grapple with those enduring questions of power, responsibility, and the very nature of our own moral compass.
If you haven't seen the Caine Mutiny, I highly recommend giving it a watch.
You should.
You might be surprised at how much a film from 1954 still has to say about the world we live in today.
It's true.
That's it for this deep dive, folks. We hope you enjoyed exploring the Caine Mutiny with us.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep those minds curious
Right.
and those conversations flowing.
And never stop questioning,
Yeah.
exploring, and engaging with the world around you.